Hello everybody. How is everybody today? So I did get the day wrong. I don't know if anyone saw that on my Instagram. I did say it was yesterday, but it was today. It's today. So we're talking about toddlers today, so I'm so excited. I've got so much. Hi, Katie. I've got so many people joining. Hi, everybody. I've got so many toddler questions for Mandy. Super excited because, like I've been talking to Mandy about when I parented hi, Georgie. Hi, Sandy. When I parented my toddlers, was very different than now. And I'm working with so many, hello, Mandy, asked to join. I'm working with so many toddlers and it's so interesting and funny around sleep. And how they respond. So I just wanted to learn a lot more about toddlers that might even be able to help me when I'm helping families with their sleep and their toddlers, because they're really cute and they've been around a little bit longer, so they have got a bigger voice, I find, when we're helping them with their sleep support, but they are really funny. And when I had my own toddlers, I didn't always think it was that funny because they pushed their boundaries all the time. Mandy just asked to join, because I can see that you're there. Just ask to join and I'll let you in. So please ask questions today. Lots of people are joining. Hi, Jen. Hi, Mary. Tony, talking toddlers. So please ask questions. I've got lots of questions to ask, like I said. But yeah, please ask away once Mandy joins. So I'm just waiting for her to join. So she's waving, but not being able to join. Oh, there we go. So we're just going to join Mandy now. She comes on. Hope everyone's having a great day, whatever day it is. Wednesday, that's what it is. Thinking about it. There we are. We've done it.
How are you?
Good. How are you, Mandy?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for joining today.
No worries.
I'm super excited. It's my catchphrase. Everybody says it, I'm sure, but I'm always learning, and I've got the 3 kiddies of my own, but they're a bit older, and even my littlest is only 10, which is probably quite old, but what I've learned as a sleep specialist and working with toddlers now is so interesting.
It's amazing how things change a lot, isn't it, generationally as well? And I guess we do the best with what we know, which is sometimes what we have to tell ourselves as parents too. I mean, I got into this because going through toddlers, my first was really challenging.
Yeah.
And even being an educator, having, worked with children forever, everyone said, you're going to be such a great mum. And I absolutely loved the baby days. I really didn't mind. Just found it fun. And then, just all the little things I thought would work with the behaviour and discipline and all this sort of stuff. I just was like, oh my gosh, I need a new plan. And to be fair, she's definitely wired more strong-willed. And I do find, they say most behaviour strategies will work for a compliant child, but with a strong-willed child, it's almost like you actually have to work with the child's development, which is what moved me from, I guess, more of a behavioural psychology approach to raising her to more of a developmental psychology approach, understanding what was going on for her and how I could work with rather than against and have hundreds of power struggles a day.
Oh, and I've got so many questions, like I said, but that's so for me, I love what I do for sleep, but I have the 3 children. They're 3 girls. They're 3 very different children, and one
Snap. We both have 3 girls. We have both. I have 3 girls.
What worked for one was, positive parenting, time out, which, people don't do these days, but all of these things that I was always researching, and it worked beautifully. But I shouldn't say which child's what, because they'll watch this one day. But one child, particularly when she turned about 15, 16 months, whoa, and if I had all these new strategies, which I can't wait to hear all about, I think that she'd be a very different teenager now. Because
it's amazing.
So I've got a bit of hindsight of that would have been nice back then, but anyway. So
and the thing that you say the teenage years, because they say developmentally the toddler years reflect the teenage years and vice versa, because there's actually a similar surge for needing independence going on in both phases, but just obviously on different levels. But so the same sort of pushback that can come in teenage years, or the need to push against you or away, is very, very similar. So that's why that 3-nager term came about, because there's a sort of mirror there.
Yes.
So it's a bit scary.
Oh, look, don't be scared. Enjoy them. it sounds like you've got, can't wait to hear your tactics, but some great tactics. But I've got a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, you know, starting high school, one of the seminars they had, specialists came in, and it was a behavioural specialist, and they said, as a teenager, just take 10 years off. So if they're 13, take off 10. And it's so true. It is so true, and it's so interesting.
Yeah, amazing.
Amazing. So yes, anyway, so let's start from introducing yourself.
Yes.
And because you've got great qualifications, and obviously, like you said, you've got a passion around this, and you had obviously something with your own child, you thought, oh, we need to look at this differently. So I'd love to hear your qualifications, obviously, and why you got into toddler behavioural stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So my background was, I was an early childhood educator. So I was in kinder and pre-primary most of the time. I've always loved the younger aged kids.
Yep.
But I just found while I was teaching for pretty much 10 years, and I haven't had my own children yet, I just had parents, because you're that trusted figure in their lives, coming to me and saying things like, gosh, you know, this is happening, what can I do? Or they keep having these massive tantrums, what can I do? Or sometimes I'd be with the younger toddler and have them on their hip and going, oh God, can you help me with this one? Like,
yeah.
can I drop her off too, type thing.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, this is fascinating, but like I'd love to know more too. I'm finding it interesting. And so that was where it was triggered, that interest. And then I had my own daughter, like I said, and was home with her for the 12 months. And then once she was around probably 9 or 10 months, I thought, yeah, this is it. I'm going to be home with her. I'm not going back to work. I think I'm sort of done with teaching a class, so I'm going to study my master's. And I did my master's in child development and family functioning, so all about how, when you have children, how the family and the parent role and what the parent role can look like, and all those sort of inner workings of the parent mind as well, like mum girls. It was such a fascinating thing to study while I was in that like phase, because it really was meaningful. And then I think, I just obviously had her in toddlerhood and was learning on the ground. As you know, you can be reading so much. And like I said before, you only do your best with what you know. So as I learned things, I applied it. And I just found that even though that she still stayed a toddler and the emotions still came, which we'll talk a little bit about, and the behaviours and the impulsivity was still there, the framework I had in my mind about how my job was to manage that made my life more enjoyable, and I enjoyed it more, and I felt less stressed. I feel like I had a framework to fall back on. And similar to what you said, like initially I had things like, oh, that was naughty, you need to have some time out. And we're talking 10 years back as well, 8 years back. And because she was more of the stronger-willed one, I was entering into a brand new power struggle, which I'm sure a lot of parents can identify with. I went into a brand new power struggle, just trying to keep her on the naughty step, or keep her in time out, or keep her in time with mummy to settle down. She would just be like, that's not going to work for me. So it sort of made me go, well, actually some of the strategies were making my life more stressful, and it wasn't feeling like I was raising a better human. I felt like I was just raising a worse mum and a worse human. Like it just, and little things were just really, surprised me. So it was a great learning curve, and then actually drove me, and I got offered to do a PhD, which has gone even further into that parent-child relationship, and I guess our responses and their like feedback loop, I guess, when we decide to take an action in one way, what they sort of feedback to us, and how you can get stuck in these cycles, which sometimes is why it's so great to have professionals in the field working with parents, and we should never be ashamed. It's not like you need a massive issue to ask for help. I find even now there'll be a few trusted professionals I'll go to and just say, look, I'm in the loop, so I can't see. So can you please just give me a few reflection questions so I can reflect on them. So it's been really good.
I needed you. And I think I've always been on a journey of self-healing and self-discovery from 17. So I feel like you said, I do have regrets, 100%, but I did the best I could. I was a stay-at-home mum. I loved my children. But that power struggle, I think back now, and I think, because that's all we knew. Like, she was so-called misbehaving, but really she just had a strong-willed personality. So I was like, well, no, and the word no, like even now when I work as a sleep specialist, I say to the parents, don't use the word no. It's like a red rag to the bull, and it's just, I think what you're trying to, I think it's all amazing. And particularly like you were saying, for me, and I'm still learning, like every day, about myself and my parenting and reflection of, even if I was trying to heal myself, anything that was you know, they pick up on everything.
Yeah, it's an amazing, like parenting is that journey really where they're going to poke things in you when they're at a certain age. So that's to bring up a lot of our internal world as well. And it is amazing how even with a partner, like I'll say certain things trigger me in one of the children, and it does not faze them at all, but another trait in another child does. So it's because of our own upbringing, or even the position in the family, like whether we see the siblings treating one of them, you know, the babies feeling like, oh, they've been super mistreated, but they were the baby of the family, so that's why they, you know, so it's amazing that, and that's what I mean about the parents loop, you know.
Absolutely. And, you know, what I'm, again, with my platform, and you be the same, is, you know, it is the most important role to be a parent in your life. You know, your business, everything's fantastic, but being a parent is the most important role for them to be able to go off and have a healthy, functioning life. But I've also gone on this journey of heal the mum, heal the child, which you would have heard of before, I'm sure. And that is just huge. It's not about the dad's not important, because they are, and they need to heal themselves too. But often we're the primary caregiver, and really trying to figure out your parent, like where you came from. And people know this to a certain degree, but it actually is really deep. It's probably the best way.
Amazing. And, you know, part of the PhD, and we'll get into toddler development, which helps to reframe this in the parent's mind. But part of the PhD has been all about parent narrative, like the stories we tell ourselves, and those stories come from our upbringing, but they also come from our belief system, and I guess the belief or the view of the child. Like, do we believe that the children should be good and listen, and do we, as we say, when we say, maybe those are the expectations on us. Generally, based on the generations some of us are raising our kids in now, we would have had a certain degree of that. You just listen and just do exactly what you were told. But there's still ways of getting children to cooperate. Of course, I believe parents are the leader of their toddlers, and they are the ones who make the decisions on what is and isn't happening. But just being able to think about yourself in a work situation, I often say this to parents, if you have a boss who's telling you exactly what you need to do, when you're craving to feel important and competent, sometimes you'll get two personalities. They'll either think that cannot perform very well at all, or they'll push back because they're like, I don't feel like you're giving me any autonomy. And that's exactly what's happening in toddlerhood. We can still be their leaders, but there's ways we frame and work with the toddler, in the way we use language, in the way we offer statements which gives them some freedom, but it's still our boundary. And those are the practical things we work with parents on, about how to have these phrases, how to guide them to cooperate. You still have to be the one. It's not like permissiveness. A lot of people think gentle parenting that's come away from maybe timeouts means they just rule the roost. Well, that's actually the last thing your toddler needs. They do need you to be the leader of the house.
The captain of the ship is what I like to say.
And so it's going down, you know?
Yeah, that's right. And it's the same with sleep for me. I know I keep relating it back to that, but it's all behavioural stuff. Is, you know, when I work with toddlers, like I said, they really make me laugh. Didn't make me laugh so much on my own. But it's boundaries, and the parents are like, oh, no, they're doing this. I'm like, well, just be there, love them. You're the parent, we're the adults. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're not ruling the roost anymore, and they're sleeping well, you know. So it's, that's
what toddlers are asking for. And I think it's that framework I was talking about, that whole mental, like what we're thinking about. And that's where I think if we talk about what's happening in toddlerhood and what they really need from their parents, it helps you to then be more confident in what your role is, and also what the likely response from them will be, which I did a post about even yesterday, about the fact that they're going to share emotions with us. And I know as parents, especially as toddlers, one of our goals every day is to try and avoid the meltdowns. But the biggest thing I learned was the more I could welcome the meltdowns, obviously there's still ways to frame where you will let a full-blown meltdown happen and all that sort of stuff. Nobody wants one in the shopping aisle. But the fear of emotions and trying to keep them all tucked in for a toddler is the last thing a toddler actually needs. They need to vent their emotions because they're going through this phase of feeling quite internally conflicted, where they're realising, I'm not my mum and dad anymore. I am my own person. This is wonderful, but it's also super scary. So they need to vent a lot. And those boundaries is what make them feel secure. So as we know in babyhood, that whole attachment and responsive care looks like maybe, you know, going to them, picking them up, giving them the comfort they need. In toddlerhood, it's still responsive care, but it's responsive care in the form of making sure we're giving the boundaries with the empathy of, I know you really wish we could do that, but this is what we're doing now, and letting, okay, you're sad, you're allowed to be sad, it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
And that's what actually gives those children that internal comfort of going, oh, this is where I sit in the world, rather than, oh, I can push everywhere and everything moves. Everything I want to push moves because they don't keep me happy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is a real game changer for me. When I had that framework, I started to have shorter tantrums, less intense, because it's like she had this predictable of, mum's not afraid of my feelings. And
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
and I don't have to not be vulnerable and share any sort of thing. Because we were certainly sort of tiptoeing, hoping not to crack the ice.
Oh, look, and you know, that's the thing, like, again, I can reflect back is what my toddler that had that personality needed. Instead of me going, time out, no, if you don't stop that, we're going to do this, like that battle that used to go on for ages, is to let her go. And that's what I want to ask you about too, because there's that fine line of people go, oh, is that just like you're letting the toddler rule the roost? And it's not about that. It's these boundaries. And again, with the sleep, it's boundaries, and they have a choice, but the parents have the bigger choice, and the toddler doesn't know. You know,
yeah,
sort of thing, so.
And that's exactly right. I call it freedom and boundaries, where I say to the parent, you're the one who decides what the boundary is. So you're the one who decides where that fence sits.
Yeah.
So if the fence is that it is bedtime, that's the fence. It's not, but there's loads of freedoms in the fence. So it's not like, oh, you could maybe go to bed 10 minutes later or 10 minutes earlier. So that's moving your fact that it is bedtime. But the freedom might be, are you going to put the book away for tomorrow, or are you going to turn off the light, like, or whatever. Or are you going to lay yourself down in your bed, or am I going to give you the big tuck in? So you're still inviting this playful bonding with them, but you're still the one who has, your job is to not move the decision of where your fence sits, because the minute you do that, they start to feel a bit insecure, and that's when they're actually up there pushing, because they're like, I was asking for a boundary, now you've moved it, which has confused me, and now I'm going to ask again and again and again. So
exactly, and I'm going to do this, and then you give into that.
Exactly. And like for us, we're like, gee, they're being a pain, they really know how to push my boundaries, but they're actually just doing their job, and we've just got to get a bit more confident of doing, I guess, ours. But that's why talking about toddlers and what's going on for them helps us to get more confident doing our job. Because I just remember thinking, especially at night, and I do feel for the work you do, Donna, because at night I just be like, whatever, I'm exhausted.
That's
like,
what happens.
Done 5,000 battles.
Yeah,
you know,
and everybody's working, you know. And this, you know, I was a stay-at-home mum for quite a long time too, and that's just really rare. So nearly non-existent. So you know, mums and dads are tired, and they might be at daycare, and then they have that parent guilt. And so, you know, I've got quite a few toddlers at the moment, and like I said, they're really cute, but you know, the parents were sleeping on the couch. These parents are full-time workers with a 4-year-old, particularly cute as, but the parents at night were sleeping on the couch, really not that comfortable, because that's what, you know. And last night, you know, I think we're 3 nights into it, she slept through, you know, and it was with me and my sleep knowledge and how I work with one-on-one, it's always responsive. We're not closing the door to go, you got to sort that out. You know, it's like, okay, we love you, but like you said, our fence, our boundary. So they're like, oh, you know, she heard what I was saying at times and on the phone. And she said, Donna said you have to do this. I'm like, that's so funny, because they're so clever. They're so
Donna, they're amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing, I guess, that really comes into play, which for me defines that toddlerhood period, is what you sort of mentioned before, is like when they kept doing a behaviour. So, for instance, you know, most of people would think, well, they keep doing that, I've got to teach them a lesson to stop. So that means time out, or whatever used to be the case. Or some people may still try that and hope it's going to teach the lesson. But the truth of the matter is, when you understand the toddler brain, the toddler's brain is their frontal lobe, which is all where the logic and reason and, I guess, habits of like knowing, you know, how to control themselves, that's sort of offline. So they are working on this impulsive part. So it's really unfair, actually, and quite a lot of pressure to put on a toddler when there's such a strong urge firing in their lower brain. They actually need their parents to be the boundary for them. And so sometimes, you know, the best way we can teach a lesson is letting them know, I can't let you touch that. I'm going to help you stop. So that means we, you know, physically being helpful. I'm going to move you away from that. That's not safe. Or I can't let you climb on the table. I'm going to pull you down. And then lots of parents say to me, but then they come on the table 5,000 times, and all I'm doing is going back and forth, pulling them down. And that's why I say to parents, that's where you obviously don't want to get stuck in being there constant, because that becomes a game, right?
Yeah.
You want to be a boundary or set a physical boundary. So for instance, if I had a time where toddlers just climbing on my dining room table forever, they'll only test that until they know for sure that that's not something you want them to do, and you're going to show them you can't. So that's where I would say, I can't let you do that. You know, can you sit on the chair? And if they can't follow through, it looks like I'm going to have to help you down. Let them feel upset if they need to. Say, yeah, I know you love climbing. Then offer them some opportunity to get that urge out. Let's go climb on, you know, whatever, balance board or whatever you've got that's appropriate for them to climb on. Or let's go outside and climb on, you know, if you've got a climbing thing or whatever. Making that opportunity, because that is them just being impulsive and trying to meet an urge they have. But if they keep wanting, trying to cook dinner, climb, that's why I encourage having some safe play spaces where you've got a little boundary. So, you know, I'm going to ask you to play here. Mine was just like a little tiny baby gate pulled across right near the kitchen. I could see them, and sometimes they would stand at the gate, but I'd be upset, and I'd say, no, I really know you just wish you could come right now. Either yeah, exactly. Or inviting them to participate in what I was doing, say on a learning tower or something, but still being the boundary and showing them I'm not going to let you keep climbing. I've even had parents just for that urgent time say that sort of thing's happening. It's just tucking the dining room chairs into a room with the door closed where, you know, a lot of people will be like, well, that's an effort. But the truth is that you're trying to work with a child who actually doesn't have that impulse control yet. And even giving them time out for that, they're still probably going to come out and
do it.
Have the urge to do it, and then that's where a lot of parents feel like we're finally losing battle because they haven't learned to listen.
Yes,
we need to come down harder on them, that sort of thing. But the truth is, we can't teach what can't be taught until their brain matures.
I know,
and it's in the marriage.
And you know, like I said, I've learned that, and like I said, it's fantastic that you're teaching everybody this. But I always find, with sort of in simple terms, what you're saying is distraction as well. You know, like you have that boundary, and you might have to say it 10 times. You know, it is like the battle of the wills. I don't like to say that they manipulate or anything like that. It's just what they do. It's boundary pushing. It's how they learn. It's what they think, like you said, they push the boundary and the parent goes, oh, okay, then let's sleep on the couch. And they go, oh, excellent. I'm going to sleep on the couch and I'm going to sleep in your bed. You know, like it's that ongoing, if the boundary offenses.
Well, that's the thing. I think what I often will say to parents is children give back to you what you give to them. So you're still the leader. So whether we realise it or not, by making allocations when, you know, obviously there's going to be times where you've also got to have ways to care for yourself. And I'm very reasonable with parents about let's try a gentle approach to get this going. But definitely, yeah, it's just one of those things where you've got to work with them where they're at, because like you said, they see that you're going okay to the couch, then they think what I need is the couch, then the bed, then 3 books, then 4 pages, and then I'm ready because you think that's what. So it's funny, they learn back, they'll give back, and the parent-child feedback loop I was talking about. So sometimes, instead of parents, sometimes, you know, a hold over the toddler can feel like, at the end of the day, like you said, there's beautiful moments, they're hilarious, they're cute, they're so smart, they love you to bits. But all that boundary pushing, sometimes it's just about finding where is it really not working and what's really, really driving you mad, and let's just work on that for now. You go from there, sort of thing. Because for some people, like the temperament of the child, sometimes it'll be every time I go to a play date, my child hits someone, or every time I go to, you know, strap in the car seat, it takes 40 minutes. Like, so everyone's got their own battle, so it's just maybe trying to refine some strategies for your battle. And that's why I do try to share on my Instagram page some specific typical toddler things you'll see and give you some actual phrases of what you can do to guide them through that. So
and do you, like, I had obviously had a little bit of a look, and you've got a workshop, and you do one-on-one? Do you do one-on-one?
I do one-on-one calls, which is awesome. We actually, the workshop's fantastic because it lays that foundation of what's going on in their brain. So why do they pick boundaries? What's going on for them psychosocially? So like this whole idea, I don't know if you've heard about this before, but the psychosocial phase that they're in is called, they're trying to figure out autonomy versus shame. So this is why it's so interesting, the choice we have of behaviour management, because toddlers are actually asking, I'm a new person that I've just realised that I'm different from mum and dad, I'm my own self. Now I want to know, can I do things? Am I capable? Am I competent? Or am I bad and not good and can't, and that's that shame versus autonomy thing where they need to know, like when they keep testing something, I know you can't stop it. I'm going to help you stop, so that it's more like we're on the same team as opposed to you're bad and you can't help yourself. It's more like, no, I get it. Your brain's, this is the narrative you've got in your head going, well, it's actually like asking a baby to give a speech. Like it's like asking them to do something that's beyond their development.
Yeah.
And that's not really fair, So, and in a way, driving you, because you're like, why can't they just listen? And like, obviously, as you know, as children get older, these skills kick in, and then the way you work with children changes, and you can introduce things like natural consequences and things that are still very logical, not completely, threat. That's a different way you sort of say you can't get an ice cream because you didn't, close the door or something. That's not related. It's still going to be related. But obviously that's more realistic to expect once they're sort of entering into that sort of middle childhood. It's different. I'm trying to skill parents with what they need for this phase.
But I think this, like again, in hindsight, it's a really important phase. So it's not just this phase. It's like, it's actually...
It's a relation.
And I don't...
It's like the foundation of how you have a relationship in your parenting and how you invite cooperation. And it's like the patterns, because the patterns you set now, the children rely on. So for instance, say reward like is your only way to go, like external rewards. That reward's going to have to get bigger and bigger and bigger and better and better and better, because that's how they've learned to function. Whereas what we want them to do is actually work with intrinsic reward, because they're wanting to know, am I capable? There's loads of ways you can help the toddler to feel good about themselves and not push boundaries all day. And one of them is actually allowing healthy autonomy, healthy opportunities to do things for themselves, setting up the home environment, the play environment. As I'm sitting in my playroom, because play is a massive strategy I have around toddlers feeling better and behaving better. And it's all these like preventative ways of going in your parenting, as opposed to just going with tackling all these troubles, like all these troubles are happening. It's almost like we've got loads of ways of bringing the environment to help them not to feel like they need control in other, or desire control in other ways. Play is a massive way of voicing that.
And is it the beginnings of self-regulation, like being able to be really supportive and loving? And probably my biggest question that keeps popping into my head when I think about toddler world is, for example, a strong-minded toddler who just likes having tantrums if they have the wrong colour plate, right? Like constantly all day, like, oh, I don't want that, or, like constant. Do you how do you deal with that if it's constant tantrums all the time? Like, it's
so fascinating that you say that, because that would be one of the main questions I get in, like, say, consults. And like what we call this is obviously that demanding. Like, it really is like a toddler stuck in a demanding. And when we see this type of behavior, I mean, like you said, we may see it in stronger natured children, but generally when we see it all day, like you said, every day, that is actually a toddler stuck in a testing zone. So yes, it's normal for toddlers to test boundaries, but when we see them stuck like that, it's actually them almost saying, like, and I like to communicate on behalf of toddlers to their parents. What they're asking from the parent is, I actually need, I do need boundaries. I'm asking for a boundary. The same as with anger. When you see huge surges in anger, it's actually the toddler becomes stuck where they're actually asking for a boundary in order to release the lower level emotions. And usually this can occur because we are trying to avoid any upset or struggles, or, like, even if it's in initial ways. Like, I remember having consults with a parent who, like, they come into our room and they demand us to get out of bed. Then they demand for porridge, and then they demand for Weet-Bix. And the mum's like, obviously lovingly going, I just want to make them happy and meet their needs. So she's gotten into this habit of sort of, I guess, getting it done so that they can just stop complaining. But then that continues. So it really, what you're asking from like first thing in the morning, I know you really want me to get out of bed now. Mummy's not ready to get out of bed yet. You're welcome to read a book in bed next to me, or play your Legos on the floor next to me. But you're letting them know, I'm deciding that I'm not just at your beck and call. It's not rude, it's not even rude, or I'm just being a crappy mum. It's actually going, well, you would, even though you're showing you wish you could be in control of everything, you don't really wish you could be in control of everything. And they'll actually have a much more settled and less demanding continuation when they are getting those regular boundaries and regular opportunities to release emotions. And that's where I really do notice those emotions are like I said, less intense and maybe less common, less frequent. Yes, they will still have emotions and meltdowns because of where their brain is. And that has to do with the brain development again. Like I said, that upper brain for us, what happens is we've got the seat of emotion inside our brain, which our upper brain wraps around, which as adults, we usually can regulate what's happening in our emotions because, or to a certain degree. But have you ever heard of the term flipping the lid?
Yes.
Where someone uses it, that's when our upper brain as adults comes away, and that's when that seat of emotion is exposed. That happens in toddlers heaps small because that upper brain isn't fully strong and functional. And guess what the upper brain is, what they need from their adults is us to be their upper brain in moments of tantrums, because in those moments of tantrums, that's where we can regulate, co-regulate with them. So, and that is where I guess as adults, it's hard, and that takes practice. And like you said, the goal is, I've heard this lovely saying before where they say the goal is not control in toddlerhood. The goal is self-control for child and adults. So our goal is to keep our self-control to a certain degree, which means you're going to have to have strategies like self-care, time away to go straight to your child, whatever you need so that you're not completely depleted. And then what's growing in them while we're being there regulator is that they're learning what it feels like to have feelings, have big waves of emotions, calm down, feel what that feels like. And I mean, I never forget, I just sort of thought, yeah, I'd love to teach her some regulation skills. And I remember giving her a calm down bottle, which, you know, I don't have anything against them. I'm sure they do work. And I'll just never forget, like, she took the calm down bottle and didn't need the calm down bottle. She needed a calm mum to let her express her feelings and empathize with it. And I was just trying to get the feelings to stop, like, that's the truth. And she took this calm down bottle and she just threw it and it just glued it everywhere. Like, it was glued all over my floor. And I just thought, this is not working.
And do you know what though? You know, as you're talking, and you know, I'm really happy to be honest on my platform, is I was completely burnt out. You know, my husband had a physio practice. He was working a lot of hours. I had 3 kids sometimes, or you know, well, sometimes I had 1, 2, and 3. And you know, sometimes just so frazzled like that, and it is so much with us to be able to have a bit of self-care, a bit of time out, so that you can look at that clearly and go, oh, because now, like I said, working with clients, they've had water bottles ditched at them, they've been slapped in the face, so many things. But it's, I know,
it's awful. It's like adult, is there like a parent abuse life?
Yes, it is. And often the parents of toddlers and bigger kids go, oh, that was kind of you teaching us to parent. And I'm like, well, not really, because we try and do the best we can at all times. But it's just so interesting. But, you know, it's so important, like I keep saying, is now in hindsight with my bigger kids, that this is a really imperative age to lay those foundations of safety and calmness, and that they can, you know, the biggest thing, even with teenagers now, we've been through quite a lot emotionally, and I've got support for that. And it's kind of the same. It's like, you know what, if they're having a teenage tantrum, which is really common, just go, and I've never used to use this before, but and I go, you know, I understand you feel that way, and you know, I did what this psychologist had said, and she was like, I know what you're doing, because it was, we can't have an argument, because I was, you know, so it's interesting.
Well, that empathy, that key, that's the thing, that it's so good that you mentioned that, because when in the face of tantrums, but also in the face of them doing a behaviour that you're gonna let them know, you know, well, I'm not getting out of bed. Like, you can get a book, or you can get some Lego, but I'm actually just having my cuppa, well, you know, or whatever. I'm just having 5 more minutes. And it's obviously within reason. We couldn't expect a toddler to wait, you know, an hour and a half or anything, of course. But that whole idea of always using, with every boundary and with every acknowledgement of feelings, is that true empathy. It's not even like necessarily even empathy as a strategy. And I think as a parent agenda or a parent role, it's really common for us, whether it be a teenager or a toddler, to want to teach lessons, and because we want the best for our kids. It's not like out of being this mean dictator. We actually have to say, like, so say my, you know, daughter, now that they're at school, comes home and says, oh, this friend is mean to me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, well, you know, you'll go to. So the instant thing in my brain is like, oh, well, you know, tell me what happened. What you mean to her? Like, almost like we just want to be like checking everything.
Yes.
But the truth of the matter is they don't need those lessons and stuff. What they need 100% primarily first, even for them to learn their own problem solving skills and stuff, is to say, wow, you're really letting me know someone was really mean to you. That must not have felt very nice. Like, actually trying to get into their life, into their inner world. And same with toddlers. When they're screaming over the plate, or whether, I mean, I remember some of the tantrums being over random stuff, like, you walk through the door first and I wanted to walk through the door first type thing. And you're like, well, like, so what are we going to do? Make the whole world perfect, come through, try reinvent it? Well, sometimes it's just like you really, really wish that you could walk through the door first, and you're so disappointed, because that is how they'll have the resilience to go through life. Life is full of, I had this in mind and then this happened. And all we need to understand, same as us, if we come home to our partners and we're just wanting to vent about something and they start giving you the next to-do list of how you solve that problem, you're like, listen to me, just listen to me and hear my situation. Like, that's, I think, exactly what toddlers need from us.
So
and
it's sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, you go.
No, it's just, again, same with sleep, with there's so much negativity out there, and it's like, to me, I'm like, there should be no negativity. But it's, for me, how we're talking with this stuff is, you do hear people go, oh, but it's just letting them get away with whatever they want. It's how you're describing it is actually really firm boundaries. But it's like you said, you're not going to go, oh, okay, well then let's walk through the door and you can go first. Like, you're not saying that. You're like validating the toddler's feelings, and they'd be like, oh, okay, okay. But rather than that argument, I think it's brilliant, because the boundaries are really strong still.
Amazing. And that's the thing, like you said, with sleep. I mean, obviously I've got like 3 kids of my own, and I totally get you. Like, I mean, one of them is like, you know, just turned 5, so they're got good sleep habits and all those sorts of things, but it doesn't mean at the end of a long day that they might, you know, I don't know, like, I'm just getting a drink, I'm just doing a wee, I'm just doing this, I'm just doing that, I just want to colour one more page, I just want, like, and, you know, you don't even, I've found the pattern I've gotten into is so helpful, because it's almost like I've retrained my brain to just respond in ways like,
so good.
I know, honey, you've been away from me all day, you wish we could just have so many more books together, I miss you too, like, almost always going for connection, by acknowledging that they don't want the day to end, and saying goodbye at night is hard for them, and so it's very much that relationship. It's like, I'm seeing you as a person, not as my next to-do list of ticking your bedtime off. And that might take a little bit, like, you know, 5 or 10 minutes, or often incrementally what you can offer. But, like, it's still those freedoms within boundaries. So, like you said, there's that gentle way of providing that independence, because they, like you said, they want to feel capable, and they want to sleep. They want to find sleep. But they can't find sleep. You would know this, when the brain's feeling maybe triggered, they can't find sleep because they really want to. So they still need that gentle guidance, but that doesn't mean we have to move with the fences. That's, I guess, what we're saying. Within the fence, there's still room for us to understand, acknowledge, empathise. But it does take a bit of a switch of the brain, like, and that's why I think immersive thinking. And I've spent, like, I sometimes will say to hubby, like, oh, you know, I really wanted to help that person that 1 hour consult, but, like, it's so much to immerse yourself in, and it's really hard. Like, you all want little strategies, but I really feel like takes time to immerse yourself in how to respond, seeing their point of view. And this is where my goal is, to really create a platform for parents where I can immerse them in scenarios, give them as much as possible. And we've got a very, 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 very exciting launch coming at the end of May, so please keep your eyes out. That is sort of going to be day-to-day toddler guide, and collaborating with people, like wonderful people like you in the field, to support toddlers and parents as much as we can. Awesome. So we keep you in touch, and you can share with others who might, you know, what support.
Definitely be looking out for that. So when getting back to your consult, so is it just a one-off, 1 hour? Is it ongoing, personalised? What can people expect?
At this stage, we've done a couple of things to support toddlers. We've got that workshop, which gives you that foundation of understanding what's going on for them.
And what's the workshop? I didn't have a look into that. Is that like an online thing, or? Yeah,
it's just an online workshop. You go straight to my www.raiseearlyyears.com website, and in the services and events, there's one called Tune Into Toddlers. It's $25. It's not that expensive or anything, and it's probably an hour and a half. It covers a whole range of things about what's happening in the toddler's brain in more detail, what's happening for that autonomy versus shame thing, going through behaviours, how to set boundaries, welcoming a new sibling, just the types of things you're going to be going through when you've got a toddler in the house.
Awesome. Yep.
And then we do the one-on-one consults, and then we also do looking at play and home environments to help you set them up for toddlers to thrive, so that, half your work is done. Like, I'm a real big believer in your environment can almost be a second parent. The way the environment works and the way that you have the flow of your family life, which is where that master's degree really came in helpful. And it can really set you up to like have less of a burden for yourself. Sure. But like this, and then I've got an online parenting forum where parents can ask questions, but we're definitely creating this new thing that's going to be 3 weeks away that is going to be the be-all and end-all, and probably replace our one-on-one consults, because they will really, really immerse parents and almost walk them through. Like I said, a one-on-one consult, absolutely, to understand something that's really become a power struggle is so worth it. But I feel like this is going to really, really support your parents, to not just go, oh, that sort of worked, but they're not immersed enough to see the big results.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, really good. Oh, well, that's exciting. Can't wait to see that. So I had a few other questions, so many questions for you. But I was, looking through, like I said, your Instagram and stuff like that. And the one that popped out for me, because you hear these sort of topics, is like you had a title of a snowplow parent.
Oh, yes, that was a good article. Yeah.
Tell me what you think about all of that, because there's snowplow, there's helicopter, all that sort of stuff, but the snowplow's a new one. So can you explain the snowplow parent?
So this was from part of the PhD study I did. We released a publication and then got picked up by the West Australian. So if anyone wants to go to that link in my website, you can read the article. It was really, really good.
It might have been what I read. Might have been yours that I read.
So in the toddler years, as you said, these are the ones that sort of set up the patterns we have with our children, or maybe, the role, I guess the parent role, what we believe our parent role is. Is it to be the boss, or is it to be making them a success by making sure they never fail, or, I guess looking at what is our role. So helicopter parenting is the one level. That is where sometimes it can come from a place of feeling really worried and anxious, and that's totally, a common thing to have come up in parenting, and I definitely recommend extra support in that regard with a health professional. But sometimes it could look like in toddlerhood, or even end of babyhood, when they're trying to tackle an obstacle, and we just want to, oh, you can't touch that, you can't climb that, that's too dangerous, you'll hurt yourself. Like, stepping in maybe before we need to. I really encourage parents to observe, be close, be there if you need to, but just incrementally intervene as needed. So it sends the child a message of confidence and capability.
Yeah.
But it's the helicopter parent where we're sort of wanting to make sure we hover over to make sure nothing ever goes wrong for them. The snowplow parent is like a next level parent where we don't just hover in the scenario they're in and try and make everything go right. We actually go ahead in the future and try and clear the path in front of them, like a snowplow would clear the snow, in order to make their journey perfect. And this comes into regard of this whole thing of we never want them to feel bad or sad or upset or feel yucky about the world. But the truth is, the real world, we actually wanted to do the opposite. We wanted them to have small little failings under the loving care of a parent who can walk them through their feelings so that they become resilient internally to face the real world. Because what they say in the snowplow parenting is it's actually creating snowflake children where they cannot cope.
Anything.
And it makes sense. So some of these strategies I'm talking about in the parenting realm of when you're raising your toddler, of acknowledging feelings, setting boundaries with the empathy of understanding that how it must feel so sad for them internally, being open to emotional intelligence. And they call this emotion coaching, really, like being your child's emotion coach and letting it, you may foresee that they might fall, but they're not going to break an arm. Yes. Actually allowing them to these little failings or trip. Or have a, once they go into school, have a little fight with a friend and feel bad about it, but not all of a sudden be on the phone to the mum trying to make sure they're again. Like actually just being able to sort of observe, watch, and yes, there are times as parents we're going to have to advocate for our children, but just being wise about when those are. And sometimes we don't see ourselves in the scenario, so it's good to try to be reflective, like have some reflective practices around that. And if you are genuinely finding, I always wanted to be, maybe that is the time to be looking at if that's being fueled by some sense of anxiety, which is a really important thing to not ignore, because you
definitely.
feel free from that. So
yeah, definitely. And I forgot I was going to say something about the snowplow. Oh, and that's the thing. Like, I love everything that you're saying, because it's how I feel. Is, you know, there are all these memes, whatever they're called, about, you know, they need. We don't want them to toughen them up. We don't want to toughen them up, but life isn't easy. Life is a lovely roller coaster, but like you said, to have this beautiful support for them to have these little mistakes. And, you know, if you look back, well, for me, looking back on my life, the most complicated challenges are the ones that have made me stronger and probably made me who I am. I want them to go through pain or hurt or anything like that, but you've gone somewhere.
yeah, you're loading again as well. Hold on.
Am I loading? You're loading? Anyway, oh, you've frozen. Have I frozen? Is it mine?
Oh, you're back.
I'm back. No, I love everything that you're talking about, because it is, like I said, so important. And everyone's doing everything from the love of their child, you know, like everything.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
It is always out of love, isn't it?
So yes, someone's asked about fussy eating, and that was one of my past clients, actually. How are you with a little toddler? What about fussy eating? And yeah, Dr. Kyle is amazing for that. But what is that, just sort of all hand in hand with the sort of toddler behavioural stuff when they're being fussy eating?
Oh, absolutely. So fussy eating, again, so that's why I love coming to understand just sort of development first, then you understand behaviour better.
Yeah.
Is a lot to do with what's going on for them, like in the surge of, I guess, experience in the world, with like a much more rich experience even in their palate and things like that, that they start to, feel differently about food. But also some of the major things we find in toddlerhood, as well as even with parents, like you said, loving parents, with, you know, praise and like, yeah, you ate that, or yeah, you did, you know, you went for a wee on the potty and all that stuff, or even like, come on, you know, try the carrot, or try having a wee on the potty. All the pressure and praise can actually be real hurdles for toddlers, because they're in that phase of going, I do it by myself. Like, stop, you know, you're cramping my style type vibes. And that actually at least puts in them a need to resist. And so there's definitely ways to manage things like fussy eating or resistance or relaxing in activities. And some of it has to do with, probably again, some of the sitting back and observing, or having a role where we provide and then they can decide. So it's a bit more trust, which is a bit tricky as parents, because especially, I guess, maybe through babyhood, we've been used to being able to sort of decide, well, it's time to strap in the pram, and we do it and there's no resistance. It's sort of this whole dynamic of starting to now learn to work with each other. Like, you have a will and I have a will, you have an agenda and I have an agenda. Now we've got to somehow
work it out.
Yeah. Work this out as a team without being against each other, pitted against each other, sort of thing. So yeah, as fussy eating is, you should expect it. You should really expect it. It's almost like some people say, I don't think my child will be fussy, but every single toddler will go through a phase. But it's the way we manage it, whether that will continue and become a true eating difficulty and continued fussiness, or whether it'll be something they come through and,
on the other side, it's all interesting, isn't it? So that's fantastic, and we've sort of touched on this anyway, but another thing that one of your topics was early parent stress. So you know, that's what I can reflect on with just life. And I loved being a parent and I loved being a stay-at-home mum, but I had lots of external stresses, which no matter if I felt like I was in control of them, they would have impacted the kids, you know, even if, you know, you're not bawling your eyes out in front of them. If you're dealing with stuff that's not in the home, I can probably reflect back and think, well, that, you know, as much as I loved it, and there's video footage of me loving it, you know, there's still life. And talk a little bit about that.
That's a burden, isn't it? Because the truth of the matter is, and this is why I like to define the parent-child dynamic as a relationship, just the same as when you're stressed at work, it's not like all of a sudden yours and your, you know, partner's, you know, when there's a conflict that arises, and really underneath the source of that conflict is actually just your or their stress about a completely different topic. And that's exactly what happens with children and us. Firstly, I think it's totally fine for parents to be human. Like you said, of course we're not going to go and bawl and like let out all that stress in front of them, because that wouldn't be like you know, fair on them, or dumping, I guess. But absolutely being able to say, like, there are times even now, and obviously the older they get, the easier it is to explain, but still, certainly with a toddler, you're able to say sometimes, like, you know, I'm feeling a little bit sad today. I think it's really important to be able to, because the minute you admit that and actually say it out loud, it actually already reduces some of the pressure we have on ourselves to be like, oh, I'm sucking as a parent right now, because we're not actually allowing ourselves. And partly being okay with emotions is the first step of being okay with our lower level emotions. I think as humans, and, you know, maybe if we weren't raised with this emotional intelligence opportunity to practice, is I think sometimes, and in fact, the Gottman Institute is a resource I'd recommend to parents to just go and binge on, because they talk a lot about the fact that we often sit with lower level emotions and we don't acknowledge them until they are, like, you know, coming out of us. And it's definitely, I mean, I think that whole idea of being able to rupture and repair with children as well, I don't know if you've heard of that before, is such a positive thing too, because if there are times that I've lost my cool with one of them, being able to say out loud, like, I'm really sorry, I got frustrated and then I yelled, and you know, it's okay for me to feel angry, but it's not okay for me to be mean to you when I'm angry. Like, it's teaching them, basically being a human ourselves, trying to manage our stress, being honest, is also teaching them along the way. So that's why, I mean, some of the stuff I learned, my family life does not look perfect. Do not get me wrong. Like, there are times where you're going to see all sorts of things if you bump into me in the shops. Like, but the thing is, the sense of feeling like I can manage it slightly better, or it doesn't overwhelm me to the point of complete stress. The management strategies is what I like to at least help parents through. It's not going to just cause your toddler to be the angel child. It's just ways of navigating the reality of what is parent life with other things going on for us too. But we did a study around this parent stress, and just by learning some of the principles like I share around parenting a toddler, it actually significantly reduced the stress of, you know, that parent in the category. Which is really nice.
And like I feel like putting myself back in the toddler parenting, is these are tools. Like, you know, back in the day there were books, and there was like positive parenting, and it was sort of very, very, very small touches on what you're saying, you know, but it's been researched and developed so much more. But just as a parent, having the tools of, like you said, I'm sure you have days where you feel like you're frazzled or whatever, and, you know, it's not perfect, but you have these tools.
Moments every day, exactly. And like, there's a pattern there, which is good. I mean, obviously we've welcomed a third baby this year, so you know what that first year of having a baby in the home with other two adapting and things can be like. And you do sometimes feel stretched beyond your abilities, but it's so much easier to be able to actually acknowledge that early on. Like, I am feeling very stretched beyond my capabilities right now. Even if it's just to myself, what am I going to do about it? What are my go-tos? Like, do I need to ask hubby to, you know, take them off? Do I need to call in somebody as a support person? Do I need to just go for a walk with no nappy bag, no human, no touching? Like,
by yourself,
even if I'm in my own backyard, like,
I know. It is, isn't it? And, you know, that's the thing is, and you've got a business. You know, I was a stay-at-home mum for 10 years. So, you know, I had all of these full-on emotions, and I didn't have the pressures of work or a business, you know, and now I'm
you know what? And that's the dynamic. I was just talking to some colleagues yesterday about this, the dynamic of there's pressures of a business, absolutely, but there's also some outlets of a business. So it's almost a dynamic between the two. Like, I feel like for me, and it depends on how you wire as a mum, and this is where I think it is important for you to have a look at what you need, like what are my needs, because when I was raising the first at home, I was studying masters. When I was raising the second, I was doing some PhD work, and it doesn't mean I'm doing it all the time or that it took away from the kids, but some parts of it felt like I had my little brain or part of me still alive in there. And that's a really important thing to ask yourself. Are you feeling like you're getting an outlet? It doesn't have to be work or a business, but outlets are really important. And
I think I didn't have that. And so, well, I know I didn't have that. And it was just the way that it was. But by the time I was ready, and, you know, now even now, as a mum of 3 kids and a husband and all of that, my outlet is my business. Like, I love it.
It's nice.
I love it, you know, and that was just the way my life was. But, you know, I didn't have anything to go to for the outlet. So, you know, I think, it's all about balance too, isn't it? But
it really is.
You know, How old's
I've
your
got
little
a
one? How old's your bubs?
Oh, she's 8 months old. So we've just been through a really fun 8 months, just wanting to be attached to mummy. So I was wondering whether she'd be on me for this, but she's actually having a nice sleep, so that's
Great,
good.
because we're talking about your mummy today. There's a few questions before we head
Yeah,
off,
I
because the
thought so.
hour's nearly up. We can talk about this
I know.
to the cows.
We can talk all day, Donna.
Okay, yes, I do. And I love talking about sleep. We haven't even gone there. But so what about a 15-month-old always whining? It's constant, and I find it hard to sympathise or understand why he's whining at times.
Yeah, whining is such a tricky one because, like, it can really grate you right to the core. Like I'm fully hearing that. That's not very fun. There's a couple of things here. Like, it is super, super, super normal, especially just on that cusp of 15 months, because that's probably the very, very initial phases where this little baby is realizing I'm not my mum or dad, I'm myself. So they're actually quite internally conflicted, and it can actually cause them to feel quite on edge. So a lot of people will be like, oh, my toddler is in a bad mood all the time, but it actually is almost like they are, like, if you you think about a midlife crisis when someone is internally having all these things and then they have these weird actions out. A toddler is going through their first life crisis, which is actually something that's really interesting to note.
Yeah.
So for starters, it's not going to last forever. It really shouldn't. Some are more driven to sort of outburst in other ways, or some will drip their emotions through whining a lot, like all day. So there's a few things that you can do. First of all, you want to look at how you're responding to the whining. So obviously, if you're having a hard time empathizing, that's totally understandable. But if you are, say, for instance, they're whining for you to, I don't know, make breakfast, or like they're whining or whining for you to pick them up or whatever, and every single time the whine starts, you instantly fix it, sort of thing. Sometimes that can be like, that's their new learned communication. Like, I get my needs met by doing this. They're not trying to manipulate you or become a whining mess. They just go, well, when I do that, then I get, So what you might want to try is not necessarily not give their needs. You have to give their needs, but empathizing when those things are happening as opposed to fixing, which I guess, again, I know it's hard for you to empathize with, but the truth is you've got to see the big picture in order to make it easier for you to empathize with. The big picture is they're actually venting their emotions, and it's actually not your job to fix it. So that's the thing, I think, the pressure on parents. The reason we sometimes struggle to empathise is either we feel this pressure on ourselves to fix it, like we're like, why isn't it working what I'm doing? Or we feel like, things are happier when it goes away. And I think the more we can sit with the not nice feelings or the not nice expressions of emotion, that's probably what I'd work on to try and extend your ability to empathise with. But the best news I can give you is it's not going to last forever, especially if you're making sure you're empathising when he's saying, whining for something, saying, yeah, you really wish you could have it, we're going to do this or this, what would you like, but not giving in to necessarily
the whining,
fixing the whine.
Yeah. Because I often find around this age, 14, 15, 16 months is a bit of an anxiety separation. So it doesn't mean they're anxious children, but they might have started daycare, and then, going to bed is like FOMO, scream the house down. So, we still respond, we're still sitting there and supporting them, which sometimes annoys them, but we're trying to give them the love and support, but we're not giving into the demands of whatever they're having that tantrum about. So it's just like, again,
exactly, because that's like we were saying, that just sends them the message that this is how I communicate now, and this is how I get my needs met, which we don't want to send that. So
no. So respond,
but yeah, you
distract. Oh, that's great.
Providing those freedoms as well. Like, if the wine is picked up, well, I can't pick you up right now, honey, but would you like to stand in this learning tower? Or would you like to, or would you like to play with your track at my feet? Or whatever you can offer them, go to the yes part. I'm going to give you a yes in the situation.
Yes.
Rather than maybe even saying, no, stop whining, I can't pick you up. Say, no, I know you really want me to pick you up, but this or this. So yeah, try that.
It's like again with the sleep, when I'm dealing with toddlers or bigger kids, I go, don't give in to any demand. So if have your hand on their back or something, and you take your hand off and they go, put your hand on the back, I go, hold their hand. Like, I mean, even to it's not like a no, I'm not doing that.
No,
you're still getting something.
Because in a way, like, they're getting this message that, like, now the best way for me to get, I don't know, like, they get locked. That's what I call it. I call it being stuck in testing. What we want to do is make them unstuck, help them to be unstuck. That is your helpfulness in that role. Like, you're being helpful, not being mean.
Love it. And again, the next question is similar, and that's for Shelley. How can I manage frustration with nagging toddlers? I would presume it's the same thing. It's the communication. It's the
and giving them the option of what you can do. Like, I mean, and look, this is great practice, because if it's not nagging, it's going to be the request to go to the pool when it's actually time to go home after school.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what's going to never stop. So it's not even a case of having to be the mean mum or always. I mean, it's really hard sometimes, because we can feel like we're saying no all day, which is why it is nice. I'm not actually against sometimes just saying no, that we can't do that today. That's fine.
Yeah.
But being able to say what you can do, like, you know,
life-changing.
Exactly. It makes such a difference. And in a way, it takes a bit of time, but every scenario there's always a can do. You just have to think outside the box.
I know.
Like,
and I wish I knew.
It's silly. Sometimes it's silly things like, some of the requests I've had are so random. Like, I mean, I'm sure parents can write in and just fill my DMs with the most random requests you get, because you do get random requests in toddlerhood, and I actually quite find them quite funny.
So do I.
But there's always them in them. Even things like, I don't know, will you know, pick that up off the floor, off the couch, or like, you know, it's just interesting, like, to say for pack up. That's what I was thinking about was pack up. Like, sometimes they'd be like, no, I can't do anything, you know, so, well, will you take this basket or this basket? Will you get the things from the couch or from the floor? Like, there's always a freedom in, and with toddlers, they actually like to feel capable, so they're like, oh, and you're building those pathways in their brain that we never hit a wall. There's never just the wall. There's always an option.
Yeah.
You know?
Isn't that great? Oh, look, I love it. And just finishing off, because like I said, we could talk forever, but we've talked for an hour. What do you think about the word no in toddler? Should families not try and use the word no, or?
I really try my best to stay away from the extremes. Like, I definitely do some research around the fact that, like, you know, there's lots of people who talk about no being not helpful at all, because you know, it puts up a resistance, and sometimes for all of us, you know, especially if you've got a stronger willed child, it might put up a resistance. But I don't feel like it's a never used word. I don't think that's realistic. I feel like you do want to use it, like I know a lot of people say for things like danger, like you want to make sure you're saying those big words like that are quick, because that's a word that comes to mind straight away when there's danger. You don't have to say, oh, we don't do this for the brother. It's just like, no, don't touch. Yeah. So try to keep it for your urgent things. I mean, I think anytime the word no comes into your mind, and even if you say it out loud, you could probably know for yourself that that's a time where you need to maybe find an option. Yeah. Because they're just going to push against your no, and they didn't get anywhere. So that's probably all I would say. I don't think it's like so eroding into their soul or anything like that. I think it's just maybe a less effective parenting tool to always say no all day, and it probably drives you mad, because it doesn't really mean much. It doesn't give the child anything of a next step. It's sort of like, it's just mum against mum. So definitely the no's for things like that's the danger, and I need to keep you safe.
Awesome.
But lots of people are requesting to save the live, so I'm sure you will, Donna.
Yes, it's going to be saved, yes, and then I'll share it with you as well if you want to share it on your page, but it'll be saved. And if anyone wants to ask any more questions on the back of that, I'm sure that you're happy to answer them, and I can forward them on. But, you know, I've loved it. Like I said, we could talk about it.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's very nice to talk to you. A fellow mum of 3 girls with a physio husband. That's exactly me.
That's so funny. Gosh, very similar. Funny. Very similar.
That's so funny.
If you need any tips for the older kiddies, you know, not that I know much, but, you know, I think...
for sure. I'm always open to help. For sure. I'll be definitely signing up to you for teenage years.
Just enjoy your babies. But hopefully with all these foundations, it'll be just a breeze. Teenage years will be like a breeze. Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, they're going to still hit their teenage development, so that's good, as long as I can expect it. And you know, you're pushing their way for a reason. It helps. It helps to know why they're doing things. It's not just like you're failing as a mom or they're a bad kid. It's none of those things. There's normal things going on, and we're in a relationship, and we're going to work out what you need and what I need in this relationship. So that's why I like the relationship.
Definitely, and a safe place at home if you can do that, which we all try and do. Thank you so much. Sure. I will save this, I will share it, and I'll be following you, and I'll share whatever exciting news you're sharing.
Yes, please. I can't wait. I wish I could just, it's so exciting.
I'll let everyone know about it. Lovely to meet you.
All right, lovely to chat to you. Have a good day, hey.
You too. Bye.
Bye.